we're moving back to the United States again, or this time Warner Brothers rather than Disney, but with the same person involved. And my same doubts about quite how much of the actual directing Mr. Burton did again, given he had a co-director here. But another distinctly Tim Burton-looking film, Scott the Corpse Bride. Or rather, Corpse Bride. There was no the...
Yes. See, right, everything I said about The Nightmare About Christmas, basically that again. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Furthermore, I consider that Carthage must be destroyed. Well, if you must, in Corpse Bride, co-directed by...
It's hard to say without a definite article, isn't it?
Yes, it really is. Which, as you mentioned, co-directed by your Timothy Burton, Esquire, and also stop-motion expert and Nightmare Before Christmas veteran, Mike Johnston. We learned the importance of not accidentally marrying a corpse when Victor...
It's a lesson we have to learn again and again, and we just won't let it stick.
Yes, and if we do not learn from history, we're doomed to repeat these mistakes for eternity. When Victor, the heir to a fishmongery empire, has a marriage arranged to Victoria, scion of the bankrupt aristocratic Everglots, the family's looking for a trade of money and status, their children's happiness benumbed. Unexpectedly, given the setup, the kids seem to quite like each other. However, the pressure of the dress rehearsal on poor shy Victor sees him running off into the woods to recuperate and practice his vows, where said marital accident happens, and he finds himself hitched to Emily, the titular corpse bride, and taken off to the underworld with its requisite spooky undead, which Victor seeks to escape. Back in the land of the living, the shock of Victor's disappearance is short-lived, as the Everglots find an apparently suitable, if obviously evil, marriage candidate in the mysterious Lord Barkis, who may or may not have murdered his previous fiancée, who may or may not have been Emily, which may or may not be a spoiler, for which I may or may not be sorry. Looking back at my review of some 15 years ago, I am struck by how damn old I am, and also by my comment that, essentially, I was expecting or wanting a longer film. Film serving sizes having ballooned since then, I don't feel that same way now, although I would add that I enjoy The Corpse Bride so much that I would certainly not complain were there an additional quarter hour or so where it is as good as the rest of it, which, for the avoidance of doubt, is very good indeed. It's very much taking The Nightmare Before Christmas's ball and running with it, and there's not a damn thing wrong with that. I shall fall back on my previously written assertion that Corpse Bride delivers a sharply written, punchy and funny script with good vocal performances and an abstract, fluid, effective animation style, and as is something of a theme of this episode, I recommend it highly. Yes, really liked it again. I'm happy to come back and watch this again. I hadn't done so in the last 15 years, and I really should have done because it's a lot of fun. Yeah. Really enjoyable show.
It's been a while, but I have revisited it more recently than yourself, Scott. But it's really enjoyable. And as before we go on, I will be recommending everything in this episode, even A Midsummer Night's Dream, just at least for the historical interest.
Yes.
But yeah, the music is definitely not quite as good as The Nightmare Before Christmas.
There's no numbers as catchy, for sure, but yeah.
No, but the opening number, though, I've loved from the moment I first heard it. I've listened to it so many times. I got the album not long after this came out. And it's, once again, Danny Elfman just clearly having fun, because the line, like, and who would have guessed in a million years that our daughter with her face of an otter in disgrace would provide our ticket to her rightful place? That's a brilliant rhyme. And also, I could have sat for 100 years and not come up with the line, our daughter with her face of an otter in disgrace. Does it mean anything? No. Is it brilliant? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this one's a bit more about the actual spoken performances, because so much of The Night Before Christmas is singing.
Yeah.
And it's great. Albert Finney is so good in basically everything, because Albert Finney was great.
Yeah.
And he's clearly having a lot of fun here. I've never cared much for Joanna Lumley, but she fits the role, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Richard E. Grant, always villainous.
Yes.
Even when he's not playing a villain, he sounds like a villain.
Yes.
And I like Richard E. Grant a lot. And then perhaps my favourite role is Paul Whitehouse, who's halfway to his Alf Gitt character from Harry Enfield and Chums here.
Yes.
And it's so great. It's this slightly browbeaten husband who's not quite sure what's going on and doesn't want to say the wrong thing in case his wife shouts at him.
Yeah. What I like about it is that he more or less says what he wants to say anyway, but he just kind of gets ignored.
Yeah, it's very sad they're not listening to her. If she hears anything she doesn't like, she pretends she hasn't heard it.
Yeah.
The only thing I want to mention about this film, other than that you should watch it if you're not familiar with it, because the animation is fantastic. It's clearly the puppets have come on a bit from Night Before Christmas. This is more what you see in a lot of stuff going forward is silicone puppets.
Yeah.
Which are
a lot more detail. A lot more. There's a lot more work in the background as well, I think, as compared to something like Night Before Christmas, which helps kind of build it as a sort of world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think the silicone stuff has quite the charm of claymation stuff, of plasticine, but it's you can get a lot more nuance in things, and something we'll come to shortly. You can have almost kind of realistic looking parts of things. Yeah. The other thing is like I mentioned during Chicken Run about the reference comedy thing. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you find a reference and I'm really struggling as to like why they thought that was a good idea. I mean, it doesn't take away from it, but the Jiminy Cricket, like it was described by the co-director, a Jiminy Cricket-like conscience that Emily has in her head, which is a maggot, voiced to sound like and made to look like Peter Lorre. I know Peter Lorre from the years of like studying film and you can pick it up, but by the 2005, the Robin Williams Peter Lorre impression in Aladdin in 1992 was out of date. Dated, So why it's in here, I have no idea. I mean, the character works for what it has to do, but it's like I'm watching this thinking, who out of the general audience for this is going to know what on earth that's supposed to be?
Yeah, I swing back and forth to that one. I mean, obviously it's a reference that I think a lot of what this film would have been targeted to is never going to get, but at the same time, it's also just a really funny voice, so I suppose it works on that basis anyway. Even if you don't know what the references to, it still works, so I'll let it slide.
For the same reason that Peter Lorre's voice became famous anyway, it's kind of slightly, because he was like Hungarian, but in like a lot of US stuff, and as well was like Fritz Lang things, but that's quite a distinctive voice, and it kind of sounds out of place and unusual, and it's a distinctive way of speaking. So yeah, it could work as a kind of an odd thing within the Corpse Bride, but absolutely, like 95% of the people watching this are going to have no idea what that's meant to be. I mean, so it's not the wrong kind of like reference in that it doesn't detract from the film at all. It's not like you need to get something from that and need to understand it to get it. It's like, wow, that's dated.
I don't know. If people want to keep catering to the old fart audience, which I identify with, I'm okay with that. So